Hey there, Seahawks. It's Miss Adams, and in this video, we're going to learn about testing a claim about a proportion. All right, so conditions for a significance test about P. We need to have random, so the data comes from a random sample from the population of interest, and large counts. So both n times P naught and n times 1 minus P naught are at least 10. So the P naught means it's coming from like the P that was the claim that we use in our null hypothesis. Our standardized test statistic measures how far a sample statistic is from what we would expect if the null hypothesis were true in standard deviation units. So it's basically a z-score or a t-score, in this case a z-score. So our standardized test statistic is our statistic minus our null value divided by the standard deviation of our statistic. If we draw and shade the normal curve, while we can use technology to find the p-value, it's best to get in the habit of drawing and shading the normal curve to go along with it. So this helps to make sure that your answer makes sense. So we have our standard normal curve, we go to our test statistic, however many z-scores we are away, label that and shade above or below depending on if we're doing a greater than test or less than test. And then using technology, we go to stat, you go over to test, and we'll be doing a 1 proportion z-test. All right, an example of checking conditions. A recent Pew Research Center poll revealed that 27% of a random sample of 194 U.S. adults aged 18 to 24 have used online dating websites or mobile dating apps. Does this sample provide convincing evidence that more than 25% of all U.S. adults aged 18 to 24 have used online dating sites or mobile dating apps? A significance test at an alpha of 0.05 significance level has these hypotheses. The null hypothesis, p equals 0.25. The alternative, p is greater than 0.25, where p is the proportion of all U.S. adults aged 18 to 24 who have used online dating websites or mobile dating apps. Check if the conditions for performing the significance test are met. So remember our conditions, it needs to be a random sample and it needs to meet the large counts. So, random. It said a random sample of 194 U.S. adults aged 18 to 24. So that was met, it was stated. Large counts. N is our sample size, 194, times P is the P that we're using in our null hypothesis, so 0.25. That gives us 48.5, which is greater than or equal to 10. So that one's met. Then I have to do N times 1 minus P. So N 194 times 1 minus 0.25 gives me 145.5, which is also greater than 10. So the conditions are met. All right, calculating the standardized test statistic. A Harris poll found that 33% of Americans believe that finding and picking up a penny is good luck. Mr. Sawyer suspects that the students at his school are less superstitious. He selects a simple random sample of 200 students and finds 52 who believe finding and picking up a penny is good luck. The appropriate hypotheses for significance tests are the null, p equals 0.33. The alternative, p is less than 0.33, where p is the true proportion of all students at Mr. Sawyer's school who believe finding and picking up a penny is good luck. Calculate the standardized test statistic. So I need to first find p hat, my statistic, which is 52 out of 200. That came from my sample, which is 0.26. And then my test statistic is my statistic minus my null value divided by the standard deviation of my statistic. Then remember to find the standard deviation with proportions. It is the square root of p times 1 minus p over n. All right, and so when we're using p naught, we're using the value from the null hypothesis. So this would be the square root of 0.33 times 1 minus 0.33 over 200 for the standard deviation. When I calculate that, I get a test statistic of negative 2.11. Find the p-value using table A or technology. Assume that the conditions for inference are met. So now that you've found the test statistic, it is a z-score. You can use that z table that we've used before, or you can find the p-value in your calculator. So using table A, your p-value would be 0.0174. If we draw this out, we have a normal distribution with a mean of 0, standard deviation of 1. I'm going to go back to the left, negative 2.11 standard deviations. I'm doing a less than test, so I'm shading below. If I do my calculator, I could do a normal CDF, and I could find that area. Or in my calculator, I can do a 1 proportion z-test, and we get the p-value of 0.0176. So you may notice a little bit of a difference. Remember that the z-table doesn't have everything, so you kind of have to pick the closest one. It's not as exact. All right, go Seahawks.